Welcome to today's Bali Bungkus, right? It's Thursday. Welcome to Bali Bungkus. My name is Ira, I'm the events manager here. If you have any questions about events, or if you want to attend our future events, or if you want to present even in our Bali Bungkus or Skillshare, please come to me or Kafi there, the junior events manager. Also at Hubud we have a lot of events, as you might know. Even organized 341 events last year. It's a bit crazy, but we do love events. It's our DNA. A lot of Skillshare happening. I think some of you have seen that has done Skillshare before, and look like some of you is what to present in the future. Looking at you. Yeah, and next to the besides all this Skillshare that's happening, we also have social events as well. For tonight, we have a special guest, Bella Galos. So she's from Timor-Leste. So she used to be a child soldier and also a consultant for the government of Timor-Leste. And she's coming here. She has an amazing story. I think you can read it on our website. The reservation is already closed because we have a limited space. So for those of you who already reserved the spot, you will get a seat. And for those who haven't, then you have to wait later, so it's going to be a waiting list to see like if people are coming or not, because otherwise it's going to be too packed, and it's better for the presenter as well to see, like something. And also, yeah, and we have fuck up nights as well. So next week on Thursday, so fuck up nights is a presentation night when we talk about failure. We have one presenter here, two. We have two presenters in the room, but we have 5 in total, so they will talk about their failure. And we have the presenter here. So it's going to be at Alaya Resort Jembawan. The early bird is already selling until Tuesday for 60,000 rupiah and 80,000 at the door. And I guess, oh yeah, and we have beer pong as well. We have beer pong tournament on Friday. So that's the event that we have this week. But the superstar of this week is Michael Burns. So the Bali Bungkus today is about storytelling for the win. So today you will learn how to tell more effective stories in copywriting, business marketing, fiction, non-fiction, and real life. Storytelling for the win. So Michael Burns, he is a content writer, storyteller, and creative consultant at Baydream Creative. Michael helps business increase sales with the persuasive and creative copywriting. Welcome, Michael Burns.
Thank you, Vito. Thank you, everybody. Full house today. It's kind of hot in here, so maybe I'll just go really fast. First of all, I'm going to take you to a place. Okay, it's a tropical island. You can close your eyes if you want. I'll wake you up when it's over. Tropical island, Nassau, Bahamas, the middle of the night. It's pouring rain. It's a thunderstorm, lightning. I'm in this small town in the middle of the island. I'm my back against the roof, against the side of a hut. It's built out of old wood and corrugated metal. There's rain pinging off the roof. I'm all alone, except for a bunch of crackheads wearing these squalid rags around me, asking me for money. The air smells like fresh rain and that smell of lightning, and also the ground smells like there's been chickens there recently. Not really pleasant. I'm kind of freaking out because I realize nobody in the entire world knows where I'm at right now. The only person that does know where I'm at is inside the hut doing something rather illegal. At this point, I look up and there's a flash of lightning, and on the road I notice there's a guy walking in the rain, and he's carrying what appears to be a machine gun. And he turns around and sees me and starts walking towards me. So sometimes travel can have a darker side. Okay, you can open your eyes now. Who would be interested in hearing the rest of that story? Very good. Why? Give me some answers.
Details.
Details, right, that's good.
Curiosity. Suspense.
Details. What was that last one?
Immersion, or how do you call it?
Mm-hmm. Immersion. My handwriting sucks, by the way. Cliffhanger. Very good.
You've described all the senses, like smell and...
Right, cliffhanger.
I'm just repeating, I heard someone say curiosity.
Senses. Curiosity, also very good. Anything else?
Plus personal. Like, I'm interested because it's you. So
Okay.
I'm more interested because it's you.
Because of the storyteller.
And also personal because I travel and
Okay, so it's relatable, right? Because you travel, you travel, you travel, so it's relatable. Anything else that jumps out? Okay, very good. Congratulations. We all just learned a bunch of good storytelling techniques, and you can use these across storytelling in all formats, whether you're writing, whether you're doing copywriting, fiction, nonfiction, social media. I'm going to give you a couple more that we were in there. I started in medias res. Is anybody familiar with that term? It means in the middle of things. So rather than start with a presentation even and say, hi, I'm Michael, and this is who I am, and this is what I do, I just started right in the middle of a story. Plus, I threw you right into the middle of this place. We definitely also had drama in there, and emotions, of course, suspense. There was fear, curiosity, another good one. So let's jump into some more of this. Here's some elements of a good story. Some of these we just talked about. Drama, of course. We need emotional dynamics. We need dramatic development. Familiarity. We've traveled, we've been places, we've been to a tropical island. The more familiar something is, the more relatable it is. Simplicity. It's a fairly simple story. A person lost in a place that they're unfamiliar with in the middle of the night. Relatability. We can all relate to this in terms of travel. The more we'll identify with the story, the more likely they're to be persuaded by it or to want to read more. Immersion. Putting yourself into the story. So you're also writing this in such a way that the reader or your customer can identify and they feel that they can project themselves into your story. Agency, we didn't really cover this there, but stories are very persuasive when the audience, can work out the meaning for themselves. So rather than telling them everything, you give them just enough and let them figure out what it is that they want to figure out from it, and then they feel like they have power. This is a really powerful sales technique. This Chris mentioned, trust in the teller. Who is the storyteller? Is that person reliable? Is it a person you've heard tell a good story before? If you're telling it from your brand, does your brand have trust? Do people want to hear what you are saying? Similarly, there's an old concept called the unreliable narrator that can be employed as well, where we don't know if the narrator's telling the truth or not, and that's been the key in many good stories. Big Lebowski kind of has that, if you're a fan of that movie. I'm a huge fan of that movie. And authenticity, all right, keeping it real. But you can also keep it real when you're writing fiction or a fictional construct in a story. And how do we do that? We keep the emotion authentic, and we keep the actions of the people within the story authentic. So these are some very key elements in any good story that you will come across. So let's talk a little bit about storytelling and the power of it and where it comes from. This is kind of a controversial statement. Does anybody disagree with this? Storytelling is the greatest technology invented by man. Why is that? If anybody has read this awesome book, I totally recommend it if you have not. Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. The author talks about basically the last 100,000 years of human history. And he does it in a fantastic storytelling way as well for a nonfiction book. And about 100,000 years ago, there were at least 6 human species on the earth, including right over here in Flores. They had hobbits, which not actual hobbits, but like little people that were their own separate human species. And today there's only one human species, right? We're Homo sapiens. So how did we survive and these other species did not? And most people assume like we were always the ones in charge. We were building pyramids, creating symphonies, all this stuff very early on. But 100,000 years ago, we were no different than a gorilla or a jellyfish or any other insignificant animal on the earth. And there were, like I said, 6 different species. But 70,000 years ago, Homo sapiens underwent what's called a cognitive revolution. And essentially, our brains changed, and nobody knows exactly how or why. I don't know if it was ancient aliens. I'm not going down that road. Just kidding. But essentially, our brains changed. It was probably some sort of random genetic mutation, and whatever happened gave us an edge over everybody else. This I like to call, wait, what happened? So basically, we developed the ability to convey information through language about things that do not exist. So essentially, in a way that's easy to understand, we went from a bunch of cavemen sitting around going, look out, a lion, to the lion now represents our god. And by doing this, we began to be able to tell stories. And this evolved originally with cave paintings and then into language. But what this allowed us to do was to have these stories that tied multiple people together. So what we could do was essentially organize large groups to cooperate. And by doing that, a bunch of puny humans could take down, let's say, a mastodon, or they could get a bunch of puny Homo sapiens together and take down a bunch of Neanderthals. And this allowed the human species to essentially dominate. And we have a lot of stories and myths, and don't get offended, but religion, laws, money, nations, these are all things that we believe in that have no real tangible construct. And by believing in these things, these are stories, and this allowed us to basically live in this world that we are today. And I think I skipped the slide. Yes, this is all of us working together. But we do. We have this special ability to unite millions of strangers around these common myths, and these bind us together as a society and allow us to cooperate on complex tasks. That's pretty cool, right? So we talked about some elements in stories. Researchers from, we talked about elements within story. Now there's building blocks of stories, and these can be found in all formats of stories, right? Some researchers from the University of Vermont, just how these go. And what these represent is the flow of the story, and kind of show you that the journey that you take the reader on. I'll check that out. So we have this. This one uses invisible ink, apparently. There we go. So if we take this vertical axis, it is happiness. Happy up top, sad on the bottom. This is time. Okay? So, rags to riches. Your story arc basically goes like this. The person starts, they're very poor. They become happier, richer as the end goes. Tragedy, riches to rags, is the opposite. You start up here. Down there. Everybody see this? Okay. This I think is the funniest name. Man in a hole. So this is where it starts out with a person in a particularly intractable problem. Maybe it's a guy in prison or a jailbreak story. So this actually starts down here below the graph and goes up at a much sharper angle. Then we have Icarus. Is everybody familiar with the legend of Icarus? Anybody not familiar? There'll be a Greek mythology skill share next week for this. Icarus was given basically technology by the gods so that he could fly, but was told not to get too close to the sun. He flew too close to the sun, his wings melted, crashed and burned. Very sad.
You feel touched.
Yeah, it's kind of the first Top Gun, really, when you think about it. So, Icarus is a very sharp arc. It goes to here and then back down. Cinderella, we all know that one, right? Does anybody not know Cinderella? Because other people have Cinderella is kind of like this. And Oedipus, another Greek myth. Does anybody not know Oedipus? Okay. The short version of Oedipus is and I had to write this down in a condensed version, he accidentally fulfilled a prophecy he was given, ended up killing his dad, married his mom, and caused a huge disaster to the city and his family. Also very, very sad. Oedipus is basically the opposite of Cinderella. He gets down and then up and then So those are the main flow. Now, when you're writing, you can also combine and move these around into different formats or add and subtract pieces as needed. So they actually determine what were the most successful stories, and these were the ones who were considered downloaded the most and seemed to resonate the most. And there's actually a really cool online tool that you can punch story names into and show you the graph. So Cinderella was a hit. Oedipus also a hit. People like tragedy, I guess. Man in a Hole ×2 is kind of an interesting idea, but that's in a big mess, come out, oh, in a real big mess again, and then come back out. And Cinderella with a tragic ending, which is basically this, and then the bottom falls down there. So again, this will all be on the quiz. If you didn't see that, copy this now. And again, you can also, like I said, you can cut and paste these things around a little bit in story structure. Think of somebody like David Lynch or Quentin Tarantino. Watch some of their movies and see how they move things around in terms of time. If you're going to do that, just make sure you have a very thought-out plan first in your story. Otherwise, it'll be kind of a mess. So, building blocks for stories are almost always the same. Somebody loves someone else. Someone wants something they can't get. Someone wants to go home but they can't find the way. E.T. perhaps. So how do we, as writers, tackle this? Because it's repetitious, right? And you own the story on the details. The details are what makes the difference. So you're creating specific people, places, using and emotions with your language. So the details are very important. So let's get down to actual business stuff. Why is storytelling important for your business? Stories improve recollection of information. People recall things much better if they've been told it in a story. If I just tell you, remember the number 7, you might forget, but if I make some kind of crazy story up, the punchline is 7, you're probably going to remember that the next day. Stories create a sense of involvement and community. Part of that is the immersion aspect, because you feel like you're taking part in the story. But also, if you want to create a loyal fan base of customers, stories are a great way to do that, because it makes people feel involved. They become part of the story that you're telling. Stories create a motivation and enthusiasm for learning. Great way to pass on knowledge. And the best way to learn is through stories. And the best way to relay messages or share lessons with your audience. They have done actual studies and found that information is much more retained and much more in depth if people have experienced that as a story. Some researchers in Spain found out this pretty awesome thing, that stories not only activate the language part of our brains, but all the other parts of the brain that we would use when experiencing the events of the story in real life. So essentially, if I was telling you a very vivid story about being chased by a lion, we're going to use lions a lot today, I think, you would actually have parts of your brain, if we were scanning it, activate that would happen if you were being chased by a real lion. I was going to go somewhere with a really bad joke about that involving changing the pants, but we're just going to move on. Anyway, it's a very visceral experience, storytelling. It touches us to our core, and it really makes us feel, and that's the important part. So the big buzzword is story marketing these days, right? Everybody hears story marketing. What is story marketing? Basically, we're selling things with stories. We're selling brands, we're selling products, we're selling ourselves if we're freelancers, build our stories. It's the ultimate marketing strategy. Why is this? Well, it brings the audience, it turns your story into the customer story, bring the audience into your life and into your brand. It's much more personable and entertaining. Anyway, as we talked about before, it engages the brain at multiple levels. It can bring in an audience that otherwise might not be interested in your product. As you're doing story marketing, you want to make sure every part of your story is strategic and correlates to your sales message. So planning is very important when you're doing story marketing. We don't want to just give them any story. It needs to be a tailored story specific to what you're trying to accomplish. You can use real, fictional, or a combination Don't mix it with vodka on Friday night. Bad. But yes, it gives you wings, and we all know that. And so, but that's their thing. That makes them unique, and it resonated enough that half the people in this room wrote the gives you wings. You want to add a human element to your content, and that is, again, we want to add this human element, and by doing that, it creates identification, so that people will feel that they are one of the characters in the story that you're telling. Awakens empathy, so this is the emotional tie for your customer. You want them to feel the things that you want them to feel, so that they're ready to take action, which is buying your product or service. And it doesn't sound salesy. It's by telling a story very subtly, you're not directly pushing to buy this. Does anybody remember the J. Peterman catalog or Bungkus, right? So that's the greatest example of that. Rather than selling rather than buy these beautiful mukluks, it's like there I was in Tibet. My feet were cold, and I came upon the Dalai Lama, and he had an amazing pair of yak skin shoes that he shared with me. It saved my life. And now you're like, yeah, I'll click on that. I live in Florida, but I don't really need those, but I'll buy that. So here's a few maybe some actionable tips here as we move along. In your marketing stories, have a strategic approach, which I talked about before. Make it relevant and topical to your ideal customers. That's very important. We all are familiar with the concept of the ideal customer avatar. Research, huge on this end. Know what these people are looking for and write a story for them that's going to resonate. Base your story on the belief systems of your audience. So essentially a way to think about that is if you're promoting an energy drink, let's just say Red Bull, you can associate that story that you're telling with adventure sports or fast driving or fitness or other types of things that a person, your ideal customer, a person drinking that would believe in. Be authentic. There's going to be some overlap here, by the way, as you're already noticing, but the most important thing here is developing and maintaining trust. And the trust is the most valuable quality that your brand possesses. And you, as a business person, it's that trust, and you want to maintain that with your audience at all times. Be unusual if you can. So you can be completely original, or you can take the familiar and put a little twist on it. Not like M. Night Shyamalan's movies, we all know what's going to happen at the end of those, but try and change things up a little bit every so often if you can. Anybody familiar with like fractured fairy tales, those types of things? So that's a really good way to think about it as well. Again, be empathetic. We want you to help people feel the things that they need to feel. Right? Treat your marketing story like an epic tale. So the story arcs I talked about here, those are all things you can use in your marketing story when you're thinking about it. Use the ones that sell. Hero's journey. Is everybody familiar with the concept of the hero's journey? Is anybody not familiar? Raise your hands. So you can ostracize you. No, I'm kidding. I'm going to show you on this next slide here. Because I remember that. This was basically also, I could look at the Skywalker on the slide. But he's a great example. A little farm boy from Tatooine goes on a heroic journey. The short version, hero sets out on an adventure, meets a bunch of fantastic forces, overcomes a lot of adversity, does some battle, and wins. And then he comes back to his community with a precious gift or a prize or a healing item of some sort. So when you're telling this kind of a story, this is one where the customers really project themselves a lot into it. Because this is just about the oldest story that there is. I mean, basically the Bible is essentially the hero's journey, if we want to go into that. The hero's journey reflects our life path in a lot of ways. We suffer, we have courage, we battle our inner demons, we overcome these things, we sacrifice ourselves, we have a catharsis. And this is what you're trying to accomplish with your story marketing and your storytelling, is that catharsis for your customer. Now, I'm going to give you this. This is going to be some serious stuff here, so get your notepads ready. Here's 10 copywriting, top 10 of copywriting, storytelling methods and formulas you can use.
Are you going to share this after this?
Yes, I am. In fact, if anybody would like doing it now, we can start passing these around. I have some email sheets where I will share all of these goodies with you. I Baydream like 5,000 of this desk. Is it 5 or 2? I don't know. It doesn't matter. The rest of you later. Okay, so copywriting storytelling methods you can use. First 3 are very easy, so they don't have their own slides. Personal story. This is the most simple one. You can walk people through a painful problem that they have and how you achieve the result yourself that the readers are looking for. Very simple story. Second one that's also very simple, the historical story. Not the hysterical story, this is the historical story. You want to find a memorable historical story that parallels with your product or service that you're selling. For instance, perhaps you have a karate or kung fu school. Well, you could go find some kind of really great story about Bruce Lee and work that into your marketing story. It's something that'll be historical, it'll resonate, or even go back further, find something about Japanese Ronin, something like that, just as an example. Another one, Meet the Guru story. This is similar to what I was talking about before with my J. Peterman story, but how you met and talked with a guru who showed you how to solve the problem that your product is about. So basically, it's a rite of passage. You have a problem, and it's one that your market shares. You find an expert who helps you overcome this, and then that person passes on their wisdom to you, and then you are passing it on to your customer. Now we get into the slightly more complicated ones, but here we go. So this is called the before and after bridge. So you structure your story. It starts with before. Here's your world. This is the world we are. Imagine what it'd be like. So here's your world, and you have this problem. Then imagine what it'd be like having the problem solved. And then follow that up with here's how you get there. Okay, so this is it's super simple. It works for literally anything. Blog posts, especially introductions to blogs. They're really nice things. Social media updates, emails, spoken word stories. Next one is the opposite of that, essentially, is the problem agitate solve. So this time we identify the problem, we agitate the problem, and then solve the problem. So instead of describing life without the problem like before, we describe life as if the problem gets worse or persists. Like, your hair's falling out, you're under a lot of stress, and it won't stop falling out. But maybe you should use this new cream and your hair will stay in. Something like that, right? This is one of the most popular copywriting formulas. It's very key to dominating social media. It's really one that really pulls people in. This would be a good name for a band, Star Chain Book. And this story structure starts with the star, which is you, your product, your service, your idea. And then the chain is to give them a bunch of facts, sources, benefits, and reason. Statistics are great. And the hook is the call to action. Stanford University did a study that found that statistics combined with stories have a retention rate of 65 to 70%, which is totally insane. You don't want to bury people with math, but it can be a very effective way, depending on your product and service, to draw people in and get them hooked. This one, features, advantages, and benefits, also known as FAB. But actually, it should be known as BAC because you do it in reverse. So your features are what your product can do. Advantages, why is this helpful? And benefits, what does it mean for the person reading or your audience or your customer? So you do it in reverse. What you want to do is sell the benefits, the advantages, and the features. So think of it this way. You get this, dot, 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 and then the product does this, dot, 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 and then you get this. So, I'm going to give you an example here. Does anybody know what a flow bee is? A flow bee. Okay. A flow bee is a large, it's basically an orb that hooks up to your vacuum cleaner, and you put it on your head, and it gives you a haircut. So, look it up, it's hilarious. So, it's a like an amazing short haircut with no mess, and without having to drive to the salon and having and saving you money, and you get it at a super low price, right? So that's it. You're doing that in reverse, and so that's your flow B. So you're focusing on the benefits, not the features. So it's fab, but it's really faff, which isn't as catchy as fab.
Michael, were you responsible for the marketing for the flow B? And if you were, that kind of answers one big question about this presentation.
If I was, I would be somewhere else right now. On a tropical island, not Puerto Rico. Alright, this one is called the 4 U's. So, we want to be useful, urgent, unique, and ultra-specific. So, this is really good technique to remember when you're writing headlines. It's also very good for Twitter because you're at 140 characters to capture somebody. So you want to be useful to the reader, provide them a sense of urgency, convey the idea that whatever it is unique, and be ultra-specific with all of that.
In 140 characters.
Yeah, well, I can help you get a great flow B haircut right now only from this amazing device that only exists in Bali today. Click here now. Right? There you go. There's your 4 U's. So, very quickly. This one is a forest. This is an acronym. This has nothing to do with trees. So, a forest stands for A for alliteration, F for facts, O for opinions, R for repetition, E for examples, S for statistics, T for threes, repeat something 3 times. So, you don't want to necessarily do all of these at once, but the idea is if you combine several of these things into your copy, it makes it memorable. Repeating things is fantastic. Threes, very good. Alliteration, especially if you're doing shorter form posts. Twitter, again, is a good one, or on any sort of social media. Also in headlines, these things grab people. So you can pull different elements out of here in combination, and it works really good. You can try and jam all of this into the same piece. If you have a longer form piece, then it will also work really nice and become very resonant. Finally, number 10. Open loops, also known as cliffhangers. I'm going to tell you more about this one next time. Right? So, psychology, we need closure. And this is what gets people coming back on your favorite TV series when it's like, will the zombies eat them? And then it cuts to black. We just don't know, so we have to watch again next week. So if we don't get this closure, we feel anxiety, and it makes us want to get closer, so we find out more, we keep reading. This is really good if you're doing email sequences. Right? Has anybody written email sequences here? And so you want to just, and I'll tell you more about this amazing product next time, and then keep giving them a little more. It's a trail of breadcrumbs, essentially. So this is really good for copy that's more than one item of copy. Like a single page sales letter, maybe not so much, but you can use smaller cliffhangers to drag people paragraph to paragraph as you go. Now let's talk about some in real life storytelling tips. So, if you are up here in front of a bunch of people and you're telling stories, or you're at a cocktail party, or hanging out trying to get a cab over by Coco Mart with a bunch of random people and you need to tell a story, here's some things you might want to know. You want to make people root for you. Try and be the underdog in your story. That really gets people to grab onto it. Be that person who's taking one of these journeys, not be the person who's the superstar, because that just gets kind of boring, quite frankly. Have a few go-to stories ready to go, so it's nice to always know a few stories about yourself or other things, and be ready to throw those down at a moment's notice. Sometimes people are not naturally storytellers, or naturally bullshitters, which also is kind of storytelling. But think about it. If you don't have a fuse, think about some fun things from your life or things that happened to you recently that you might be able to talk to you about, and just try and keep those in mind, especially in social situations if you feel quiet or awkward. Stories about how you feel, not necessarily what happened. So the story I told you at the beginning, that was a little bit more right about how I was feeling at that moment. It wasn't quite so much about the fact that I was in what may or may not have been a drug deal commas, and it was more about I was scared for my life. There was a guy with a machine gun coming and crackheads and lightning, and nobody knew where I was. So this also makes your audience be drawn to you as you're telling the story. The stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You'd be amazed at how many people forget that. We all talk to somebody at a party who's just going on, and you're like, where the hell is this story going? Right?
Then you found $5.
Yeah. What's that?
Then you found $5.
Right, exactly. So try and remember that as you're telling your story. Don't meander. Get to the point, one way or another. Good stories are universal, so everybody, we want to have something that people are going to be able to identify with, even if it's about something random and weird. There's always a way to make it identifiable to people, especially through emotion. That's the big key. And don't be boring. I mean, we don't want a boring story for one thing, but if you don't have any good stories, you need to get out of the house. All right? You need to live a little. Everybody should have a few good stories, things that have happened to them. If you're like, I don't have any stories, you're just maybe not thinking about it right. Do a little brainstorming, come up with some things. If you really don't have any, you need to live a little bit. Get out of the house, go do some stuff. So let me see how we're doing on time here. Oh, good. So we're going to do some fun little exercises. Everybody up for that?
Perfect.
There will be no math. Wait, let me check. No math. Okay. So the first one is answer, what do you do? So people, this is questions we always get around here. Where are you from and what do you do? Where are you from is very complicated. That has so many layers. We're not even going to touch that. But what do you do? We can all do a lot better, I think. So, for instance, you could come up to me and say, what do you do? Yes, tell me. Say to me, what do you do?
I co-founded a communication consulting.
Okay, no, because that was Chris.
What do you do?
Oh, thank you, Chris. I'm glad you asked.
That's okay, John.
That's okay.
He was trying to trick you.
Yes, I was trying
just
to
trying
trick
to
you, and I
trick
was not clear. You knew right away. So Chris says to me, what do you do? And I can say, well, I'm a copywriter. Yeah, but, that leads to follow-up questions and things like that. But what I could do that would be cooler is to make that into a small story. So I could figure out a problem that I solve, explain the results that I deliver, and even add on why, although that could be optional depending on how long the rest of this is in one sentence. So I can say, well, I help businesses and purpose-driven entrepreneurs increase sales and profits by writing persuasive and creative copy for their internet presence because I'm passionate about storytelling.
Wow, that's better.
Right, much better than like, I'm a copywriter. So, of course, if you catch me for coffee in the morning, that's all you're going to get. So, what I want you all to do is just think about this for a minute. I'll give you like a minute or so, maybe two, and then we're going to go around the room and see who can tell their story. one knows about and help people solve their problems by getting exposure to the world. Something like that.
I help passion-driven entrepreneurs increase their revenue with creative and unique brand and marketing strategies.
Okay, very good.
I help social entrepreneurs become more successful in their business by providing them volunteering business mentors, because I believe we should change capitalism and have businesses more for good.
Awesome.
That's an existential question, so I have to pass. I get it.
Mark, Adrian down here.
I'm the sad. I'm 100% the sad.
Okay. I help ambitious people get jobs they love because I can't tolerate settling or bullshit in my life, and I'm passionate about helping other people do the same.
Very good.
I help business people around the world communicate by helping them to learn other languages wherever they are through an online platform. But it sounds like I'm a teacher, but I'm not.
So how can you differentiate that from teaching?
Because I work to help people, to create features on the platform to make it better.
Very good. Okay. Carol?
I make the day-to-day of running a business more like driving with GPS rather than driving around a brand new city for the first time all on your own without, because, technology.
Nice.
Hi, Bets.
Alright, so I work with sustainability issues, helping the property sector and coffee growers. And what I do is just do consultancy work and importing sustainable coffee to Australia because I want a more sustainable world. Sorry, my English.
Sorry, what's the problem that you're solving?
The problem.
So lead with the problem that you're solving.
Sorry, that I had this morning a session with Chris and he was kind of
That is okay. Yeah.
switch the whole thing. The problem that I'm solving, so I'll just focus on the coffee thing. So helping this indigenous community to send that sustainability message out to the modern world. So I'm a vehicle for them to communicate that.
Okay, great.
So I am a theater maker, actor, and writer. I mix writing and theater to bring the writing alive and let the audience experience topics that I find important, rather than only reading about it and understanding it intellectually.
Okay, so you just need to kind of take the part off the end, move it to the beginning,
Yeah.
and then you got it.
I'm gonna pass
I'm a mechanic. I fix electronic brains in order to help people be more productive. Yes. Everything else.
the story.
I'm just a programmer.
No, that was the best part. That
But
That
that's
was great.
because that also makes me want to go get what with the what, and then follow up. So that's the whole beauty of this method of explaining what you do. Okay, keep going.
Sometimes some systems you get flows, like flow of water in a pipe, flow of air on an airplane, and I'm running simulation with my computer to understand these flows better so we can improve whatever system we
I help individuals find order in their chaos and work through their emotional bullshit so that they can get on with more positive in their lives.
I help brands and organizations attract and retain customers through creating a better customer experience.
I think the education system is immoral, and most people are unhappy with their work. And I work in schools and co-working places that allow people just to be and find their center. No, I want to hear yours. Come on, Siva. I know you have something in there. Come on.
Your quest.
Channel your waterfall. Yeah.
I help companies grow by narrowing down what they do in a more persuasive way.
I help companies acquire new customers and increase their brand customer loyalty by improving their online presence.
I want to work on social impact projects, and to do that, I'm starting my own online business so I can create a passive income stream which frees my time.
I help startups and the people who work for them focus on what they want to do by doing well what they don't want to do, because I want to learn everything.
I have a request, yeah, so I'm breaking boundaries, drawing connections, and communicating with people from all different walks of life to defy the system that I've been integrated into.
That's awesome. Bravo.
Yeah, that was good.
All right, nice job, everybody. Take all of those things you just said and go update your LinkedIn profile. Good thing. Want to do one more? We got time to do one more little exercise. This one's a lot more fun, and it's not about you. You ready? This one involves a cat on a surfboard. So this is a cat on a surfboard. He's wearing a life jacket. He's at some island. He's in the ocean. What is he doing there? Why? So I want you to think about this for a minute. And we're going to listen to the Jeopardy song again, in case you're wondering. And then we're going to talk about maybe in 1 to 3 sentences, what is this an ad for? What is the beginning? Is this the beginning of an ad? So you want to give me a brief story that's the beginning of an ad for this story. So, and I can even go first, just so you guys get an idea. All right. So, cat on a surfboard. Go. Selling in this picture? Is it about the cat? Is it about the life jacket? Is it about the surfboard? Is it a vacation holiday? Be any of these things? And to the handful of people in here that I told yesterday that I was going to put a picture of a cat on the surfboard up and talk about it, I did it. Okay. Does anybody want to go?
Sure. I mean, I do a TV ad with the storyboard of, starting with the cat and then doing a cut immediately to a bunch of dogs kind of laughing in the play yard, and then cut to dogtoys.com.
Okay. So I also want to hear, like, a couple of sentences. Like, tell me a story, like we just did about ourselves, but tell me maybe as if you were writing copy for this. Okay.
I'm sure you're organizing that I have very good piece. Right. Okay, the first line would be, I get it, you've lived to fear. The second line would be, fear has been for you what water has been for cats. The third line would be, the Surfer Cat program is here to teach you how to live to fear like a cat that surfs to water.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yes, this is just an exercise of looking, it's a really good writer's mind exercise, looking at something and figuring out the story behind it. Right. I'll tell you what mine would be, which is, do you feel like you need 4 feet to balance on your surfboard? Is the old sex wax not doing it for you anymore? Who knows what sex wax is, by the way? Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure before I go on with this. You'll feel like you have 9 lives when you're carving the waves when you use new pussy wax on your board. There you go. So there you go.
Maybe you better tell people what sex wax is. I'm a little concerned we're going to get some complaints at the host desk.
It's directed to me, but it's a good joke for sex wax. Sex wax is a very popular brand for waxing your surfboard. Anybody else want to give this a shot? Come on, this is fun.
Time of finding things for your pets to do while you're on holiday. Try cat sitters.
Like Fifi could never feel fulfilled with a mouse on a string and had a dream to be bold and adventurous, but with the life insurance can too. He can live his dreams.
Awesome. Anybody else want to count on the surfboard? Sure.
How many times I have to tell you, fresh thing? But hey, at least I'm not peeing on your desk.
Anybody else? Cat on the surfboard. Alright, when you get to talk about a cat on the surfboard. Alright. Say meow. Very nice.
I did not, but that's
Alright.
funny.
So anyway, I want to say thank you for attending today. My name is Michael Burns, and I am a copywriter, content writer, creative consultant, storyteller. You heard my little pitch before, so I don't need to do it again. And I want to leave you with a couple words from Steve Jobs, and this is his brand story right here. One of his former co-workers at Next, which was his company after he left Apple, before he came back to Apple, heard him say this once: the most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda for an entire generation that is to come. So just remember, as storytellers, the tremendous power that you have over not only sales and your brand and your image, but literally all reality. Any questions?
What happened in the Bahamas?
Is that a true story?
I got the beat.
So, I mean, that's great, Michael. Thank you. It's always nice listening to your story. And there's one thing that, they find, there was an article either in the paper today or yesterday about there's a guy in the States making $2,500 a day creating fake news, fake stories, right? And he has no issue with it. And a lot of people, I spent 25 years in marketing, working with the biggest advertising agencies in the world, and I was always, dumbfounded by the fact of creative people compromising their values and ethics to tell stories for tobacco companies or tell stories for companies that they don't believe in and stuff like that. So I guess this is more of a kind of just a question as to using it. I mean, how do we bring consciousness into marketing, right? And and I think that to me there's this great wastage of this creative talent that exists within the advertising and the storytelling world. And I differentiate storytelling away from marketing. I think marketing has this intention. Storytelling has an authenticity to it. So anyways, I'm just be interesting just to kind of hear your view as to how we don't tell stories that we don't believe in.
Well, storytelling is definitely folded into marketing, whether we like it or not. Right now, it's the predominant aspect of it, and the one that's most attractive, and the one that the skill set that people are seeking out. In terms of being ethical with it, I mean, I think that's always up to the individual. There's a lot of people out there. I had a mentor once tell me, said basically the short version, if you're going to meet a lot of people in this industry, most of them are really good people, a lot of them are assholes. Try not to work with the assholes, you'll live longer. And when you think about it just in terms of the broader spectrum, the idea is that there's a lot of people out there who don't have ethics or who are in a situation where they've had to sacrifice this for financial reasons. We can't speak for why everybody does everything they do. I think as individuals, we can aspire to a higher standard, and especially the kind of people that will be here are not going to be the kind of people who are going to take a job writing for Exxon Oil tomorrow or the next day. But that's just an ongoing issue, I think, in society in general, and especially now that there's so many sources of information coming out. There's a lack of critical thinking being taught in schools, which maybe you can help with there on your end, so people don't know the difference between fake news and a real news, or between an unethical company and an ethical company. So that's just something I think we all have to take personal responsibility and just try and, when they say the rising tide lifts all boats, right? So let's take it as far as that goes. Anybody else? Questions? Comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you do writing for fun?
Yes.
What kind of writing?
I write fiction and sometimes scripts if I'm feeling ambitious. And I'm working on, I've had quite a bit of short fiction published, and I'm actually working on a compilation book right now. So marketing and write a few news stories and kind of that out. But that probably these days. Yes.
So how do you integrate the technical and the creative? Because sort of telling the story and the interesting parts, and yet keeping track of the arcs and the different components and elements. That is sort of a working process. How do you integrate those?
So much of it is done, well, it depends on a lot of things, but for instance, let's say I was writing about a landing page for somebody. Usually I'll receive a creative brief and I'll get a bunch of supporting materials from the company, and then I'll go through and actually break a lot of that down in a spreadsheet format so I can kind of keep track of, like, these are the things that I have to hit, these are the things that the company is about, these are the things that I shouldn't be writing about. And then often reading through that enough will give me an idea where I can basically sit down and write a draft. And then as I edit, which the writing is in the rewriting, right? And as I edit, I'll go back and change and adjust pieces as needed to fit where it needs to fit. So there is a little bit of technical, like I will actually cut up a document and stick it in a spreadsheet category so I can keep track of all of those parts. That seems to work for me. Yes.
So, I love the theory and idea of storytelling and marketing, and just putting it into practical terms. As for a specific example, I was just asked to create this physical mailer for this nanny service, and this lady somehow had more levels of security for a nanny service, and that was like her product benefit or whatever. And so while I'm writing this mailer, it's a headline and it's a little piece of body copy. And practical terms, I don't obviously want to ask you to write it right now, but how do you intertwine storytelling?
I need something out of my car.
I'm just wondering, like, how you put these things we learned today and storytelling into this mailer. And I know that's a huge general question, but I'm having trouble seeing the theory put into practice. Do you know what I mean?
I think in that case, the big thing is, who is this woman's ideal customer, and get as much research and information as you can about that, even if it means you have to interview your clients, and then maybe even get her to refer you to a customer and do an interview with them and find out what their pain points are. Like, what is it to make? I have a questionnaire that I give to people, and I change it depending on the client and the project, but it's like a 6-page questionnaire, and then literally at the top it says, I know no one expects a written test, but because the more information you have, the easier it is to put something out that sings to the people that you're trying to get. So I would try and collect as much information as you can about that target audience, and then find out the problem that they need solved, and why do they need so much security? What is it they're feeling, and why do they need that? And target that in your copy at the top.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you for that.
Or if that fails, resort to Mary Poppins metaphors. Always works.
You can send me 3% off PayPal.
It's about 40 cents.
Anybody else? Yes?
How do you start from zero? I mean, sell me this pen. What do you do? I love the cat example because we're working backwards, right? You already have something and then try to sell me a product. Okay, but how do you start from scratch?
Well, again, when you start from scratch, you don't want to be absolutely at zero. So let's say I was in this case where I just got this new client and they say, we want you to write this about the nanny and this is the things. And I would look at the information I was given and determine if I had enough information in order to actually write something that is saleable. And then you go about collecting more information. Do research on your own into, talk to Mr. Google. Why do nannies security services, appeal to mothers, right? What kind of mothers use nanny services? And so you want to accumulate, you need content to create content, which is sort of the ironic thing, right? It's like you need money to make money. But in this case, especially when you're writing for something else, you need to gather as much information as you can. So if I was going to sell you this pen, I would Google this pen and find out everything I could about this pen, pens like it, or the competitors, the companies that make this pen, how many pens they've sold this year, how many pens they think they're going to sell next year, the quality of the ink,
that's not what I was looking for, and then it turns into something that you can't put in your portfolio later, but it ultimately they're the client, and you have to deal with what they wish for. You can try to persuade them otherwise, of course, which you always do, but that's basically, like I said, it's research and getting as much information as you can. Anybody else?
Can I add on to what you were saying?
Absolutely.
That's super interesting. Like also, like for me, for example, when I write content, what really helps me out is to really take into consideration whatever is the requirements for the project as a structure, because that gives you contention in terms of like it's kind of like ends up being like a little game where you need to fit in the pieces, right? So part of
You have a specification for it.
yeah, you always will have like certain type of requirements and type of structure you have to follow. So if you take that and you add on like all the information, then it's like a little puzzle that you just need to kind of like sort out.
And like I said before, with the spreadsheet, sometimes I'll actually categorize it. I'm like, okay, this is this type of information that I have, and I'll put it all, and so it's organized. So that way, when I get to a part in the document that I'm writing or the copy, oh, I need to write about the benefits here. What are those? And I can refer back, and I have it all organized. So now I know where the benefits are, and I can get all of that from here and polish it up and make it something shiny that you're going to want to buy here. Yeah, you're welcome. So if you guys want slides, my notes, and list of resources that I'm going to